Hi, I'm Stacey Park, and this is Artbeat, a Missouri Western production. There's a lot happening on the local art scene, and Artbeat will be there to give you a front row seat to the latest performances, workshops, and festivals. We'll also go behind the curtain to chat with the local artists, volunteers, and organizations that make it all happen. So let's go see what's happening in this edition of Artbeat. Thanks for joining us for Artbeat. Today we're meeting with Mr. Clyde Weeks, the Executive Director of the Roubidoux Row Museum, to learn more about the history of Lake Contrary. Mr. Weeks, can you tell us more about the timeline of Lake Contrary?
Sure. The first mention we have of a written report of Lake Contrary was in 1865. A man by the name of Charles Fredericks discovered what the farmers called a pond at that time. And he found that it was very good fishing and hunting grounds. So he would take wagon loads of men down there, and this was before there was even a road to Lake Contrary. And so it became very popular with the sportsmen, and then later it became popular as a recreational area for the city people. So.
And could you tell me more about the recreation area then?
Okay. Well, the lake itself is actually what we call an oxbow lake, which means that it was the Missouri River at one time. And then, of course, it changed channels and left the lake itself there. One of the first things they had down there was a racetrack, which was about a mile long. Now later they shortened it to half a mile. And then we also had an amusement park. We had the Lotus Club, which was like a men's country club. And we had the casino. Now a casino in those days did not mean gambling. It meant a place of varied entertainment, which meant that it was a theater and a floor that could be used for dancing and roller skating and things like that. So it was quite a recreational area at one time.
Quite a destination.
Yes. The Lotus Club was originally built in the 1880s as a men's club, or boating club actually. And then it was remodeled by the Light and Power Company, who purchased it in 1900. And that's when it became the beautiful building that most people remember. It did have a dance floor built out over the water, and even Theodore Roosevelt appeared there one time when he was running for vice president. But the room that was probably the most famous was the dining room. And there they served meals of fried chicken or frog legs, costing as much as $1 per person, which in those days was exorbitant, you know. So, but they were known for their food all over the Midwest. So.
I see. When there was the dances, was there an orchestra also? That
yes, yes. Yeah.
And I think I read that there was a song created about Lake Contrary, or about the Lotus.
Yes, there was one written by Ernie Barnett, I believe was his name.
I see.
And sorry to say, the building burned in 1924, and those memories are all gone now. So.
The amusement park is
yes.
something that I've heard stories about from community members.
Yes. The amusement park, we're not for sure when it started. We think it was around maybe 1880, 1890. And it was just kind of haphazard, you know, here, there, and wherever. Then in 1908, they had a big fire which destroyed the entire north side of the Midway. And in those days, the Midway was only 15 feet apart from side to side. So they decided to rebuild the park in 1909. And in that time, they put in the chute-to-chutes, which almost everybody in St. Joseph remembers if you're as old as I am. And that became the centerpiece, and was also a big body of water in the center, which they could use in case of fire or something.
Are there any stories about the amusement park that you could share with us?
Well, I talked to one lady. They used to have Dinah the Elephant appear there as a free act on the Midway. And one time when it had been very rainy, like it had been this season, the cars would get stuck out of the picnic grounds. So they would hitch up Dinah and pull the cars out.
Oh, wow.
So Dinah did double duty that time. So.
What a story. You mentioned the casino.
Yes.
And the casino was a place well, as you said, we typically associate a casino with gambling.
Yes,
but,
not in those days.
but not in those days. And there was a theater company that was
yes,
there.
They had vaudeville would appear there, all different kinds of acts. And then they would bring in acts from across the United States, of course. Probably the most famous person to appear there was Sarah Bernhardt. And I think they paid her like $2,300 for one performance, which in those days was another big sum. And her train broke down out in the middle of Kansas. So they had to pull her in behind a freight train, which I'm sure was not the best for her. But anyway, she came. It was about like 11:30 at night when they finally arrived in St. Joseph. They backed the train down to, or the cars down to Lake Contrary and unloaded the scenery and the costumes and so forth and gave the program, which lasted until 1:30 in the morning. But I guess everybody wanted to see the Divine Sarah, even though the entire program was in French, so I'm sure nobody understood what she was saying. Originally, they had a racetrack down there, and it was 1 mile long, which is pretty good length for a racetrack. And so when Palmer Clark came, he was a horse racing enthusiast from Wisconsin. When he came, he decided to make it 1/2 mile long. And they built a big grandstand, which would seat like 5,000 people. And they did a strange thing. They coated the track with a type of soil that we have down around Lake Contrary called gumbo. And he didn't realize that when gumbo gets wet that it sticks to everything like concrete. So it was very poor when it was a wet track for horses running. So they finally had to change that. But,
well, when I listened to the stories and the buildings that were there, and I'm just I'm sad that those things aren't there anymore.
Yes, true.
Can you talk about what happened that those buildings are no longer there?
Well, of course, in my time, we only had the amusement park left. The racetrack had gone, the casino had been torn down in the 30s, and the Lotus Club burned. So the only thing left was the amusement park. And it was very popular, especially during the war years, 1940s and so forth. And then in '49, we had a big ice jam on the Missouri River, which flooded the park. And it was kind of, they didn't know that it was coming, or at least didn't pay attention to it. So it ruined a lot of the motors and things and the rides and things. So they just got that all fixed back, and the dance floor and everything, because you can imagine water on top of the dance floor. And in 1952, we had another big flood, and the water stood 8 feet deep in the park. And so those two things were really the start of the downfall. Then in 1960, we had a storm come through. The Weather Bureau called it a strong wind. Those of us who lived down there called it a tornado. But anyway, it took trees down and put them across the Giant Dipper roller coaster. And that was kind of the end of the park, because that one ride brought in 1/4 of the... And at that time, Worlds of Fun was being built in Kansas City, and so people were going there. They wanted more modern things. So popularity just waned.
Did people come from all over to...
Oh yes, yeah. We were the center of the Midland Empire at that time, you know. That's what they called the section around here. And yeah, people would come down from Iowa and Kansas and different places to go to the park. So.
Was there a particular person or persons that kept the park?
Yes, Bob and Anna Ingersoll. I think he came in 1901 and she came like in 1904. And he built many of the rides there. And they carried it on until 1964 when it was, well, he had passed away, of course, but she was still alive when they auctioned the park off in 1964. So.
And I read in your book, Lake Contrary, Days of Glory, that the Ingersoll Road at Lake Contrary is named after the
Yes,
Ingersolls.
it is. They were going to put a monument down there also, but somehow the monument never got built, so we at least have a road named in their honor. So
yes.
It's nice that they're remembered, because they did so much. She gave so many free rides on the merry-go-round and things, because that was her thing. Schools used to go down for picnics at the end of the school year, and that was a big thing at St. Joseph.
Why do you think it's important to keep the memories alive of Lake Contrary as it once was as a destination area?
Well, for me, it's because I remember part of it, but just to let the younger people know what we did have in St. Joseph and what can be done, you know, if you really try. And because these started out as just very small things and just grew and grew and grew. And it's just a part of our history, and so we need to remember those things too.
Thank you very much. Mr. Weeks' book, Lake Contrary, Days of Glory, is available at the local St. Joseph libraries. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Artbeat. Keep watching for us on MWTV or watch us on the web at missouriwestern.edu/artbeat, where you can also check out upcoming arts events and organizations. Thanks again for joining us. See you next time on Artbeat.